Have you ever wondered why some of the world's greatest civilizations, like Egypt, Mesopotamia, the Indus Valley, and the Mayans, rose to unimaginable heights of knowledge, architecture, and culture, only to mysteriously decline or disappear? Today we'll uncover the secrets of these ancient worlds, exploring what made them thrive and what challenges led to their downfall. By the end, you'll see that the mysteries of these civilizations aren't just about the past. They hold powerful lessons for the world we live in today. Welcome back to our journey through time. In this episode, we'll step into the ancient worlds that shaped human history. From the pyramids of Egypt to the ziggurats of Mesopotamia, from the planned cities of the Indus Valley to the cosmic calendars of the Mayans, these civilizations tell a story of human brilliance, resilience, and mystery. Together, we'll piece together the puzzles they left behind and understand why their legacies continue to fascinate us thousands of years later. Imagine standing on the banks of the Nile River more than 5,000 years ago. The sun beats down on golden sands, and the lifeline of Egypt, the Nile, flows steadily, turning the desert into a fertile ribbon of green. This river wasn't just water, it was survival, power, and prosperity. Without the Nile, Egypt could never have become one of the greatest civilizations in history. But with it, they built monuments so massive and enduring that they still leave us speechless today. This is the story of how a river and a vision shaped the rise of ancient Egypt. For centuries, the Nile's predictable floods nourished the land, depositing rich black soil along its banks. Farmers learned to work with this rhythm of nature, cultivating wheat and barley that not only sustained the population, but also supported a thriving economy. It was this agricultural abundance that allowed Egypt to move beyond simple survival. With food security came specialization. Farmers could farm, scribes could write, priests could serve the gods, and architects could design monuments meant to outlast eternity. This delicate balance of nature and human ingenuity turned Egypt into a land of innovation and wonder. But what truly set Egypt apart was its ability to organize and unify. Around 3100 BCE, King Narmer, also known as Menes, is said to have united Upper and Lower Egypt into a single kingdom. This unification marked the beginning of dynastic Egypt, where pharaohs ruled not just as kings, but as divine beings, gods on earth. The pharaoh wasn't simply a political leader, he was seen as the link between the people and the gods, the one who maintained order, or Mayat, in the world. This belief gave immense power and authority to the throne and allowed Egypt to remain stable for centuries. Religion infused every aspect of Egyptian life. They worshipped a vast pantheon of gods and goddesses, each representing forces of nature and aspects of daily existence. From Ra, the sun god who gave life, to Osiris, the god of the afterlife, Egyptians believed their destiny was tied to the will of the gods. Temples were built as both places of worship and displays of wealth and devotion. Yet, it wasn't only temples that captured the imagination of the world. It was the pyramids. The pyramids stand as perhaps the most recognizable symbol of ancient Egypt, a reminder of both their engineering brilliance and their obsession with the afterlife. The Great Pyramid of Giza, constructed under Pharaoh Khufu around 2600 BCE, still towers over the desert as the last remaining wonder of the ancient world. Imagine the sheer determination it took to move millions of limestone blocks, some weighing more than 2 tons, without the modern machinery we take for granted today. The precision with which they were placed continues to baffle historians and engineers alike. These structures weren't just tombs, they were stairways to eternity, built to ensure the pharaoh's soul could ascend to the heavens and live forever. But Egypt's greatness wasn't only measured in stone. They gave the world some of its earliest writing in the form of hieroglyphs, a system of pictorial symbols that captured both practical records and sacred texts. With writing came administration, the ability to record laws, keep track of taxes, and preserve stories for generations. The Rosetta Stone, discovered much later in 1799, became the key to unlocking this mysterious language and understanding the thoughts of people who lived thousands of years ago. Their contributions extended into science, mathematics, and medicine as well. Egyptians calculated the stars to align their monuments, measured time with sundials and calendars, and practiced medical treatments that reveal a surprisingly advanced knowledge of the human body. Trade also played a vital role in Egypt's rise. The Nile acted as a natural highway, connecting distant regions and enabling the exchange of goods like gold, papyrus, linen, and grain. Egypt became a hub of commerce, linked not just to Africa, but also to the Mediterranean world and beyond. This economic prosperity reinforced their power and allowed their culture to spread and influence others. And yet, behind the majesty of temples and the wisdom of scribes lay the daily life of ordinary Egyptians. Most people were farmers, living in mud brick houses, working the fields, and relying on the Nile's generosity. Others were artisans, laborers, and traders, each contributing to the intricate web of society. Their lives may not have been filled with the glory of the pharaohs, but they formed the backbone of the civilization, ensuring its survival generation after generation. The rise of ancient Egypt wasn't an accident. It was the result of geography, unity, religion, and human ingenuity. From the moment the Nile's waters first nurtured its people, Egypt was destined to rise as a beacon of civilization. Its legacy, carved in stone and preserved in memory, continues to captivate us because it speaks to something timeless: the desire to create, to endure, and to be remembered. Picture a vast plain between two mighty rivers, the Tigris and the Euphrates. The land here was fertile, unpredictable, and alive with possibilities. It was in this stretch of the Middle East, in what is today Iraq and parts of Syria, Turkey, and Iran, that humanity first began to take the monumental step from scattered farming villages to organized cities. This is Mesopotamia, often called the cradle of civilization, and for good reason. Here, people not only tamed the land, but also invented many of the very foundations of human society as we know it today. The rivers were both a blessing and a curse. Every year their waters would flood, depositing rich silt on the farmlands. This allowed for abundant harvests of barley, wheat, and dates. But unlike the predictable rhythm of the Nile, Mesopotamian floods were often violent and erratic. Sometimes they nourished, sometimes they destroyed. This uncertainty forced people to cooperate, to build irrigation systems, canals, and dikes. It was the necessity of survival that gave birth to collective organization, and with it came the first cities. By around 3500 BCE, places like Uruk-Ur and Eridu rose from the plains. Imagine the sight of Uruk, with its massive walls stretching for miles, enclosing a bustling urban center filled with artisans, farmers, priests, and rulers. This wasn't just a settlement, it was the dawn of urban life. For the first time, human beings were living in concentrated communities where trade, governance, and culture flourished side by side. And within these cities, something extraordinary happened: the invention of writing. Around 3200 BCE, the Sumerians developed cuneiform, a system of wedge-shaped marks pressed into clay tablets. At first, it was used to keep records of grain, livestock, and trade. But over time, it evolved into a tool for storytelling, law, science, and literature. The Epic of Gilgamesh, one of the oldest known works of literature, was recorded in this very script. Through it, we glimpse the hopes, fears, and questions of ancient people. What does it mean to be human? Can anyone escape death? How do we find meaning in life? These are questions still asked today, echoing across millennia. Mesopotamia was also where the idea of law itself took written form. The Code of Hammurabi, carved onto a towering stone stele around 1750 BCE, stands as one of the earliest examples of codified laws. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth may sound familiar, and it reflects the principle of justice laid down by Hammurabi, king of Babylon. This wasn't just about punishment. It was about establishing order in a world where chaos was never far away. By setting rules, defining rights, and creating consequences, Hammurabi brought a measure of stability to his kingdom, and in doing so, gave humanity a blueprint for governance that still resonates. Religion also shaped Mesopotamian life in profound ways. The people believed their world was controlled by powerful gods and goddesses, each tied to natural forces and cosmic order. To honor them, they built massive temples called ziggurats, towering step pyramids that dominated the skyline of their cities. Priests performed rituals to appease the gods, seeking protection from floods, droughts, and war. Life here was a constant negotiation between human ambition and divine will. Where Egyptians saw their gods as protectors, Mesopotamians often saw theirs as unpredictable and demanding. Perhaps this was a reflection of their environment, where floods and droughts reminded them that life could change in an instant. But Mesopotamia wasn't just about survival and worship, it was also about progress. These ancient innovators gave us the wheel, the plow, and the sailboat, tools that transformed transportation, agriculture, and trade. They divided the hour into 60 minutes and the circle into 360 degrees, concepts that still shape the way we measure time and space today. Their advancements in mathematics, astronomy, and architecture laid the groundwork for countless generations that followed. Trade turned their cities into hubs of wealth and culture. Merchants traveled along river routes and overland caravans, exchanging grain, textiles, and metals with distant lands. This not only brought material prosperity, but also ideas. Mesopotamia became a crossroads of cultures where knowledge spread and grew. It was here that the seeds of empire first took root, as city-states competed, allied, and warred, each striving for dominance over the fertile land between rivers. And yet, despite their brilliance, the civilizations of Mesopotamia faced constant challenges. Invasions, droughts, and internal conflicts often brought mighty cities to ruin. Empires rose and fell. Sumerians, Akkadians, Babylonians, Assyrians, each leaving their mark before giving way to the next. This cycle of creation and destruction is part of what makes Mesopotamia so fascinating. It wasn't a single civilization, but a tapestry of many, woven together by the land and the rivers that both sustained and threatened them. When we call Mesopotamia the cradle of civilization, it isn't just because it was first. It's because here, in this fertile but unpredictable land, humans began to experiment with the very structures that define civilization: writing, law, government, religion, science, and urban life. The choices they made and the challenges they faced became the blueprint for societies across the world. Far to the east of Mesopotamia, along the fertile plains of the Indus River, another great civilization quietly flourished around 2600 BCE. For centuries, it remained hidden beneath layers of earth and time, until its discovery in the 20th century revealed something astonishing. A culture just as advanced, just as organized, and yet far more mysterious than many of its contemporaries. We call it the Indus Valley Civilization, or the Harappan Civilization, after one of its first excavated cities. What makes this civilization so fascinating is not only its achievements, but also the unanswered questions it left behind. Imagine walking into a city like Mohenjo-Daro or Harappa at the height of their glory. Wide streets stretched out in a grid-like pattern, carefully planned and laid out with precision. Houses were built with uniform baked bricks, some 2 stories high, equipped with private bathrooms and advanced drainage systems. These weren't random clusters of huts. They were organized urban centers, designed with a vision of order and cleanliness that was unmatched in the ancient world. The drainage systems in particular still impress modern engineers. Underground channels carried wastewater away, suggesting a society deeply concerned with hygiene and public health. What makes the Indus Valley so remarkable is the sense of equality reflected in its cities. Unlike Egypt with its towering pyramids or Mesopotamia with its massive ziggurats, the Indus cities didn't revolve around grand palaces or monumental temples. Instead, the structures we see are practical, modest, and uniform. This has led many scholars to believe that power and wealth may have been more evenly distributed, or at the very least, less concentrated in the hands of a single ruler or elite class. Some have even suggested that their society might have been more cooperative than hierarchical, though the truth remains uncertain. Trade was the lifeblood of the Indus Valley people. Their cities were strategically located to connect distant regions. Archaeological finds show that they traded cotton textiles, beads, pottery, and even semi-precious stones with Mesopotamia, Persia, and beyond. Seals bearing intricate carvings of animals and symbols have been discovered as far away as Mesopotamia, proof of the far-reaching influence of their economy. These seals are among the most intriguing artifacts left behind, often decorated with a mysterious script that still baffles scholars today. Despite decades of study, the Indus script has never been conclusively deciphered. leaving us unable to read their records, laws, or stories. It is as if their voices have been silenced, their thoughts locked away in symbols we cannot yet unlock. Religion in the Indus Valley also remains shrouded in mystery. Unlike the grand temples of Egypt or the ziggurats of Mesopotamia, the Indus people left no monumental places of worship. Some scholars point to the Great Bath at Mohenjo-Daro, a large, well-constructed pool, as a possible site for ritual bathing or purification ceremonies. Seals depicting figures in yogic postures suggest early practices that may have influenced later Hindu traditions. Animals such as bulls, elephants, and tigers frequently appear in their art, perhaps representing sacred symbols. But with no deciphered texts, we can only speculate about their spiritual beliefs. The Indus Valley people were also masters of craftsmanship. Their pottery was elegant, their beads finely cut, and their tools and weights incredibly standardized. This standardization across such a vast region hints at a high level of coordination, perhaps even a central authority or strong system of governance. Yet what is striking is the lack of evidence for kings or warrior elites. Unlike Mesopotamia or Egypt, there are no massive statues glorifying rulers, no records of military conquests, and no monumental tombs filled with treasures. Their legacy seems to reflect a society more focused on community and practicality than on individual glory. And then, almost as suddenly as it rose, the Indus Valley civilization began to decline around 1900 BCE. The reasons remain one of history's greatest mysteries. Some point to climate change, suggesting that shifts in the monsoon weakened agriculture and forced people to abandon their cities. Others argue that the rivers that had sustained them may have changed course, leaving once fertile lands barren. There are theories of invasions, disease, or internal collapse, but the truth is, we don't know for certain. What we do know is that by around 1500 BCE, many of the great cities lay abandoned, their streets silent, their drains empty, their script unreadable. The ruins of Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro remind us of both the brilliance and fragility of human achievement. Here was a civilization that mastered urban planning, sanitation, trade, and craftsmanship thousands of years ago, and yet left behind almost no written legacy that we can understand. They thrived without grand monuments or tales of conquest, focusing instead on order, cleanliness, and connection. Their silence challenges us, urging us to piece together their story from the fragments they left behind. And perhaps that silence is what makes them so compelling. A lost voice in the chorus of ancient civilizations, still waiting for us to listen. Deep in the jungles of Central America, beneath the dense canopy of green, the remains of a once great civilization lie scattered in stone. Towering pyramids rise above the trees. Temples carved with intricate glyphs whisper stories of gods, kings, and cosmic cycles. This is the world of the ancient Maya, a civilization that flourished for centuries across what is now Mexico, Guatemala, Belize, Honduras, and El Salvador. To the outside world, they are often remembered for their mysterious collapse, but their true legacy lies in their astonishing mastery of astronomy, mathematics, and time itself. The Maya were not a single empire but a network of powerful city-states, each with its own rulers, palaces, and ceremonial centers. Cities like Tikal, Palenque, Copan, and Chichen Itza became hubs of culture, politics, and religion, connected through trade and shared traditions. These cities weren't simple settlements. They were monumental works of architecture and design. Step pyramids soared into the sky, their staircases leading to temples at the top, where rulers and priests performed rituals meant to connect the earthly world with the divine. At the heart of Maya civilization was their relationship with time. To the Maya, time was not linear, but cyclical. They believed that cosmic cycles governed human destiny, and their priests devoted themselves to tracking the movements of the sun, moon, planets, and stars with astonishing accuracy. Their calendar systems remain one of their greatest achievements. The Hab, a 365-day solar calendar, worked alongside the Tzolk'ins, a 260-day sacred calendar, to create a complex system of timekeeping. Together they formed what we call the calendar round, a cycle of 52 years that influenced every aspect of Maya life, from planting crops to planning wars to performing sacred rituals. But they didn't stop there. The Maya also developed the long count calendar, a system that could track vast stretches of time, reaching back to what they believed was the moment of creation itself. It was this calendar that sparked widespread fascination in the modern era, especially around the year 2012, when many misinterpreted its cycle as predicting the end of the world. In truth, the Maya never foresaw an apocalypse. For them, 2012 simply marked the end of one great cycle and the beginning of another. How did they achieve such precision without telescopes or modern instruments? The answer lies in their careful observation of the skies. Maya astronomers built observatories, like the famous El Caracol at Chichen Itza, with windows and alignments designed to track celestial events. They recorded solar eclipses, the movements of Venus, and the phases of the moon with breathtaking accuracy. Their calculations of the solar year were more precise than those of many later European systems. For the Maya, the heavens were not just a scientific puzzle. They were a divine blueprint guiding the rhythm of existence. Their understanding of numbers was just as advanced. The Maya were among the first civilizations to develop the concept of zero, a mathematical breakthrough that allowed them to perform complex calculations with ease. Their vigesimal or base 20 number system was represented with dots and bars, carved into stone monuments or painted in codices made from bark paper. Through this system, they not only tracked time, but also recorded dynastic histories, rituals, and myths. The glyphs that decorate their temples and stelae tell of kings who claimed descent from gods, battles fought, alliances formed, and cosmic events interpreted as divine messages. Religion infused every part of Maya life. They believed the universe was divided into layers of heavens, the earthly world, and an underworld known as Xibalba. Gods and spirits inhabited every layer, influencing the fate of humans. Rulers were seen as intermediaries between mortals and the gods, responsible for performing rituals to ensure harmony between the cosmic and earthly realms. Bloodletting ceremonies where kings and queens offered their own blood were acts of sacrifice meant to nourish the gods and sustain creation. The ball game, played in grand stone courts, was not just sport, but a sacred reenactment of cosmic struggles between life and death. Despite their brilliance, the Maya were not immune to struggle. Their cities often engaged in warfare, competing for power, territory, and captives to offer in rituals. Around the 9th century, many of the great southern lowland cities began to decline. The reasons remain debated. Some point to environmental pressures like drought and soil exhaustion, others to political instability and constant warfare. Whatever the cause, many of the monumental cities were eventually abandoned, reclaimed by the jungle. Yet the Maya people did not vanish. Their descendants still live across Central America today, keeping alive languages, traditions, and aspects of their ancient culture. The ruins that remain, from the towering temple of the inscriptions at Palenque to the mighty pyramid of El Castillo at Chichen Itza, remind us of a civilization that gazed at the stars and sought to understand humanity's place in the cosmos. The Maya showed us that time is not just a measure of hours and days, but a sacred cycle, a rhythm that connects the human story with the vastness of the universe. Their legacy endures not only in stone, but in the idea that we are all part of a much greater cosmic design. Across deserts, jungles, river valleys, and mountains, civilizations have risen, flourished, and eventually faded into memory. Ancient Egypt, Mesopotamia, the Indus Valley, the Maya, all vastly different in their geography and culture, yet when we look closely, they share patterns, lessons, and warnings that echo through time. Their stories are not just about the distant past, they are about us, about humanity's ongoing struggle to build, to endure, and to understand what it means to create a lasting legacy. The first lesson these civilizations teach us is the power of nature to shape destiny. Egypt owed its greatness to the Nile, a river that provided abundance and stability. Mesopotamia wrestled with the unpredictability of the Tigris and Euphrates, forcing innovation in irrigation and cooperation in survival. The Indus Valley people thrived where rivers and monsoons sustained agriculture, only to falter when those same forces changed. The Maya flourished in tropical lowlands, aligning their cities with celestial cycles, but their dependence on rainfall left them vulnerable to drought. Nature was both a gift and a test. Each civilization found ways to adapt, but when the environment shifted beyond their control, the very foundation of their existence was shaken. Another lesson is the extraordinary human capacity for innovation. These civilizations weren't simply surviving, they were pushing the boundaries of what was possible. The Egyptians raised monuments so precise and enduring that they defy imagination. The Mesopotamians gave us writing, laws, and the wheel, tools that still shape our world. The Indus people created cities with sanitation systems so advanced that it would take millennia for others to match. The Maya charted the skies with such accuracy that modern astronomy still marvels at their achievements. These innovations were not accidents. They were the result of curiosity, necessity, and the collective effort of entire societies. They remind us that progress is built not only by individuals, but by communities working together over generations. Yet, alongside their brilliance, each civilization reveals the dangers of imbalance. Power concentrated in the hands of rulers could unify societies, but also burden them with the weight of ambition. Pharaohs built monuments to eternity, but those monuments relied on immense resources and labor. Kings in Mesopotamia codified laws that brought order, but wars between city-states often consumed their strength. The Indus Valley may have built a more egalitarian society, but their lack of clear leadership structures might have left them vulnerable when crisis struck. The Maya, with their competing city-states, poured resources into warfare and rituals, even as environmental pressures mounted. In every case, the structures that gave them strength also contained the seeds of vulnerability. There is also the question of legacy. These civilizations rose to astonishing heights, yet most eventually declined. Egypt endured for thousands of years but fell to foreign conquerors. Mesopotamia, cradle of so many firsts, was battered by invasions and internal strife until its great cities were left in ruins. The Indus Valley quietly faded, its script unreadable, its story half-silenced. The Maya abandoned many of their monumental cities, though their descendants still carry on aspects of their culture today. Their declines remind us that no society, no matter how advanced, is immune to change. Power is never permanent, and greatness must constantly adapt to survive. But perhaps the most powerful lesson is that their voices still reach us across the centuries. The Egyptians carved their prayers and triumphs in stone, so we could hear them millennia later. The Mesopotamians pressed their stories into clay, and those tablets still speak of kings, gods, and epic heroes. The Indus people left behind a script we still cannot read, challenging us to listen harder. The Maya aligned their temples with the stars, leaving a message that human life is inseparably tied to the cosmos. These voices remind us that civilizations are more than dates and ruins. They are human stories, filled with the same hopes, fears, and questions that define our lives today. If we step back and see them together, we realize these civilizations were not just ancient curiosities, but chapters in a larger human story. They show us the importance of harmony with the environment, the necessity of cooperation, the danger of unchecked ambition, and the beauty of curiosity and imagination. They warn us that collapse is possible, but also remind us that resilience, adaptation, and memory endure. Long after their walls crumbled and their rulers were forgotten, their wisdom, art, and questions remain, waiting for us to learn, to reflect, and to carry forward. Brink. As we journey back through the sands of Egypt, across the fertile plains of Mesopotamia, into the planned streets of the Indus Valley, and beneath the towering temples of the Maya, one truth becomes clear. Civilizations may rise in different lands, speak different languages, and worship different gods, but the heartbeat of humanity is the same. Each of these cultures reached for greatness, striving to leave a mark upon the world, and in doing so they created the foundations of our modern lives, our writing, our laws, our cities, our calendars, and even our understanding of the cosmos. Their stories are not only about triumphs carved in stone or mysteries hidden in ruins. They are about resilience, innovation, and the fragile balance between humanity and nature. They remind us that progress is never guaranteed, that even the mightiest civilizations can fall, and that the lessons of the past are warnings for the future. Yet they also show us the enduring strength of human imagination, the will to create, and the desire to be remembered. We may stand thousands of years removed from their world, but in many ways, we are still walking the same path. The questions they asked are the questions we continue to ask today. How do we build societies that last? How do we live in harmony with our environment? How do we balance ambition with wisdom? And how will we be remembered when our own time becomes history? The ruins of Egypt, Mesopotamia, the Indus Valley, and the Maya stand as silent teachers, reminding us that while civilizations may fade, the lessons they leave behind remain.